What strategies were you able to use in Illinois, where Obama came from? What have you been able to use over there to start to turn people towards the Republican Party?
So I tell people not to do boilerplate politics where you just give this sort of bland speech, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to fix this. I tell people you need to tell a story, you need to tell a narrative, and that's a much more powerful sell because unless they like you, they're not going to vote for you. So one of the things that we were talking about is how the cost of healthcare had spiraled out of control. We want to try to fix that, try to bring down healthcare costs. So can you explain, in the 1980s, we went from one healthcare system to what we have now in the present day?
Sure. So in the 1980s, welcome to the Dr. Ori Nagy Show. I'm Dr. Ori Nagy, running for Congress in Nevada's 3rd Congressional District. Today with me is Adam Loweisz, who is a prominent figure on X and has been coaching people on social media advancement for their companies for many years now. And tell us what else you're an expert in and what brought you to Las Vegas.
Hey, thank you so much over here. So I'm a big social media guy. I used to have a Facebook page with 115,000 followers. Unfortunately, got banned after the 2020 election because they just banned a bunch of Trump pages. Then when Elon bought Twitter, I decided I'm going to give it a try again. At the time, I only had maybe about 3,000 or 4,000 followers, constantly getting suspended because I would be stating things like, for example, a trans person, I think we should treat them fairly, but a trans person is just simply a person with gender dysphoria, and that does not change, their biology, and something like that would get me 7 days bans. But when Elon bought Twitter, I said, I'm going to try it again. Went from about 3,000 or 4,000 followers to almost 50,000 in the span of about 2.5 years. Became great, friends with a lot of, friends with Elon's network and friends with Elon himself also. Got a chance to meet him in person in Wisconsin because he got politically actively involved in the 2024 election. And it's just since grown from there. And I've used, all the skills that I've learned over the years of just doing things for myself. I then just decided to go out there and teach it to other people to give us a better chance to win elections and help people's businesses, with our network to grow faster.
So you've been helping a lot of conservative candidates in Illinois learn to better promote their message, and has it been successful?
Yes. So I've helped candidates in Illinois, advise them, especially the entire Illinois GOP knows me, and I've helped out with a few campaigns over here and there, and I've managed to turn things around for quite a few of them. Now, Illinois is a pretty desperate state because we're so D-heavy, so it's, it's a huge uphill battle, but I was able to demonstrate to them for just pennies on the dollar compared to radio ads and TV ads, they can get a lot more traction for their campaigns, and then that traction adds up because they can reuse that rather than just simply it goes out into the ether when you put out a TV ad or a video ad or radio ad. It's something that you can actually reuse and you get a little higher ROI on it. So I've helped candidates in the area do it. I've helped my friends' businesses do it. I've taught courses in Chicago where I've had multiple 40 people attend, and I taught them the same thing that I taught here in Vegas when I was asked to come over here to teach.
Katrina Ivanoff brought you over. She's
Yes.
She's running for 8041, I believe, or 8042. We'll have to figure that out. But she's a very conservative lady. Got very strong ideas about how to improve our state. And how did she find you?
Yeah, she's actually a fan of mine on X. So she saw that I did that event in Chicago, and it turned out really well. And when I did that presentation, I worked with ex-employees to make sure it was very accurate, everything I presented. And she said, hey, can you do something like that for, the Nevada GOP? And I said, not a problem. But I don't know anyone in Nevada, so I'll have to ask you to organize it for me. I'll have everything ready, and I'll just come in and I'll teach. And it actually turned out pretty well. We had about 30, 35 people show up. Almost everybody walked away with a lot more knowledge than they expected because it was very technical when I got up there. Yeah, so I went into great detail of how the algorithms work, how it picks your things out, how it calculates your score, whether or not to show on other people's feeds, and how you could leverage that to give yourself just a slight advantage, and over time that accumulates into a compounding effect to grow your accounts.
I got to check this program out, and I know very little about social media. I found it tremendously informative, and it was interesting to hear from somebody who spent so much time studying all the algorithms and trying all the different methods to sort of how do you increase a channel over the years, and for you to share your experience with us was a very beneficial. I think anybody who's got a business they're trying to promote, certainly all the political candidates who are out there right now, particularly on the conservative side, would benefit a lot from taking your course or learning from you. That's just an honest opinion.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, and I'm trying my best to kind of help us get across the finish line. There's a lot of us that are trying to help that, like some friends with Scott Pressler. And so Scott Pressler is also another prominent figure in politics. He helps register voters across the country for Republicans, and he teaches people how to do voter registrations for different states. And so, for example, in Pennsylvania, when they had the 2024 election, Scott Pressler was helping to organize that, along with the Pennsylvania GOP. He works with them side by side. And I believe it was his PAC also that also worked on that. And they got a huge donation from his PAC, and they managed to get the voter registration up to the point that they flipped Pennsylvania for Trump. Wow. So it's a concerted effort, but because he's only one person, there's only so much you can do. But if you can teach 100 people, now you multiply your work by 100. And so that's the goal. Is I'm only one person, I can only do so much. But if I can come here or in Chicago or anywhere else, and I could teach 40 additional people, then they could apply those skills, and that adds up, compounds over time. And then the next time I come around from word of mouth, I'll have more people attend my class, and I could teach 100 people next time.
No, absolutely. We'll have to have you back. What strategies were you able to use in Illinois, the Democratic stronghold where Obama came from, where they were able to funnel lots of Democratic money? What have you been able to use over there to start to turn people towards the Republican Party?
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of people who've come in here from California, and so we struggle with some of the same issues.
Yeah, so I tell people not to do boilerplate politics where you just give this sort of bland speech, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to fix this. No. I tell people you need to tell a story. You need to tell a narrative, and that's a much more powerful sell because people will not unless they like you, they're not going to vote for you. So I tell my candidates, for example, is create personable stories. Go out there in the field, meet with people, take selfies with them, collect their stories. Someone's wife, her husband, just lost his job because the factory moved to Mexico, or the factory moved to China. Well, that's a story that you can talk about in your district, and you can bring up how you want to bring that manufacturing back so that these hardworking people are not struggling to put food on the table for no fault of their own. And that is a much more powerful message. So when you take that photo, you put it on your page, you put a few ad dollars into it, all of a sudden for maybe $100, $200 of ad spend, you get like 3,000 likes. Whereas if you took a boilerplate, you're standing there all regal residential and you've got just bullet points and it says, vote for me, you'll spend $1,000, you'll get maybe only like 100 likes. And so I'm explaining to them that there's more effective ways to do the marketing that gets your message out and in a way that's more personable if you do storytelling with your politics.
One of the things that we have here in Las Vegas is that this is a city of innovators. There are people here from all over the world. It's the third most ethnically diverse community in the country, and the number of people who come here with amazing new ideas and ways to sort of transform our economy and our city and our country is fascinating. One of my favorite guys right now is an architect who came down here. And he is the original designer for the New York building. So have you been to that casino? So,
yeah, I passed by it, yeah.
So he's a very brilliant guy. And he decided one day he was flying up to Canada and he was looking at sort of the forests and he saw all the big patches where they sort of had deforestation because of the lumber. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm going to figure out how to build buildings without using lumber. He was kind of like, into eco-friendliness at that time. Mm-hmm. And so for the last 20 years, he's been trying to find successful construction materials that don't involve the use of lumber. Now that we have this embargo on lumber from Canada, or the trade issue with rising prices because of they're not being compliant with what they need to do to be fair, lumber prices are rising. That means construction costs in our city are rising. And here in Las Vegas, a lot of our economy rises and falls with the ability of us to build new construction to house all the people who are coming in from the rest of the country. Mm-hmm. So it's like mostly styrofoam, a couple metal posts, and then you spray on what amounts to stone, and it's spray. It becomes it's resistant to fires, to floods, to earthquakes, and FEMA has approved all of this stuff to use in the areas where they had the fires recently over in California.
No, the Palisade fires. Mm-hmm.
And they're able to stand it up in about a third of the time that it takes to stand up regular construction out here. So if it reduces labor costs, if it reduces material costs, that's a huge benefit to the construction industry out here. And we supporting folks like that from our state is really a big deal. One of the other guys who was doing some really amazing stuff was a guy named Bigelow. He had Bigelow Aerospace out here. He had started out as a kid. He grew up out here when they were still doing above-ground nuclear tests. Mm-hmm. And so his story is that it used to be common for people to go outside their homes, watch the nuclear bombs go off, and then after the nuclear bombs went off, they could see like these little flying things in the sky, I guess observing or something. And so it was just common thoughts among all these folks, he claims, that there were aliens, and that's just what people thought. So over time, he started to open these motels, and he made lots and lots of money running hotels all over the country. And but he never lost this belief that there's something else out there. And he became the person who collected all of the information from the U.S. Air Force pilots and the Navy pilots and commercial pilots who had seen an unexplained phenomenon. And what had been happening to all these people is they had been sort of relegated as psychiatric or having problems, and they'd lose their careers. And he went to the Air Force. He's like, listen, what are you guys doing with all this data? Let me just start to store it and record it and compile it for you. Let them come and talk to me, and we won't criticize. We'll just accept whatever information they have. So he became the repository for all of this information and so he probably knows more than just about anybody in the country, other than the people who are maybe at Area 51, if there is anything right on this stuff. And so he had, being an expert in construction and housing of these motels, he had this idea that we can build hotels in space. Maybe we'll put a casino in the sky, right? And so he got a bunch of scientists together and went full force on this. And as a matter of fact, there's parts now on the International Space Station that were built by Bigelow Aerospace right here in Las Vegas. Bright people doing amazing things, like they're leading the world. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, during COVID, the governor we had at the time decided that the work that they were doing wasn't essential work. And so they had to close down their space, and he couldn't, maintain the salaries of, 50, 60 engineers during that. So the whole of the company was destroyed, and it hasn't gotten back up. And it was just a huge loss to our state. The kinds of things that happened during the COVID crisis were really awful. It was a shocking thing for me to see the strip dark. I'd never seen that before, and it was it really made me want to step up and do something. So at the time, we were able to we found a generic drug that was curing people with COVID and using it in the hospitals over here. We had 77 people in our treated group, 44 in the untreated group. We had a 68% reduction in mortality, 37% reduction linked to hospital stay. And a few months after we told the hospital staff, that they removed the drug from the shelves and wouldn't let us prescribe it anymore. They never gave us an explanation. And then when we went to the University Medical Center, they wouldn't let us use it over there. And suddenly I was in war. The dean of the medical school had declared war on me. I was like, well, what are you talking about? I don't even know you. We just have this drug. We think we should test it and try it. It seems like it's saving lives. It seems like a good thing. And so, then we kind of ended up taking that data. We combined that with another generic, filed for patents. We thought some giant company could buy us, and that giant company could fight with Pfizer and Moderna and those other giant companies at that level. And so then we took it and we presented to the NIH and to BARDA and the FDA. And our science is solid. Former chairman of the Department of Immunology at Stanford, looked at our stuff. Yeah. Your science is good. But when we asked him, would you say that publicly? He said, absolutely not. And we were just like, why? And he said, well, because if we do, Anthony Fauci is going to cut off all of our grants for our program, and all the people who are underneath me and that community will lose their jobs, and they won't be able to feed their families. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody that prominent was afraid of Anthony Fauci, really every academic program in the country had to be afraid.
Yeah, this goes back to something we were talking earlier prior to filming over here about the perverse incentives that are in healthcare. Yeah. So one of the things that we were talking about is how the cost of healthcare had spiraled out of control. And you were telling me about how the insurance system works, and it ends up only feeding into this loop that makes things more expensive. So when you're going to be running for office, you're talking about how you want to try to fix that, try to bring down healthcare costs. So can you explain how you explained it to me? In the 1980s, we went from one healthcare system to what we have now in the present day.
Sure. So in the 1980s, we had the best healthcare in the world, and it cost 8% of gross domestic product. Today, we have the worst healthcare of any developed country, and it costs 18% of gross domestic product. So we're paying more than twice as much with a far inferior outcome. Warren Buffett commented on this, and he said, if we don't do something about this, we're not going to be able to compete with China, India, or the other rising economies of the world. Mm-hmm. But he didn't say what the cause of the problem was or how to fix it. The cause of the problem is because of the structure of insurance companies. Today, almost all of the insurance companies are publicly traded firms. In that model, the CEO has two incentives. The first incentive is to charge as much money as they can possibly extract from the community, from the employers. The second incentive is to provide as little care as possible. To the extent that they maximize both of those goals, they maximize profits for the company, shareholder valuation, and the CEO's bonuses. But that's obviously not in the interest of the patients. In the 1980s, almost all of the insurance companies were mutual insurance companies. So in a mutual insurance company, the company is owned by the policyholders. Those are the shareholders. So now the CEO is accountable to the people he has to take care of. And that accountability makes a difference. So that kind of a CEO, they can't deny appropriate care or they'll get fired. So now that CEO's incentives are to provide the highest quality care for the lowest possible cost, which is exactly aligned with the patient's incentives. So in that model, when we had it in the 80s, it cost less than half of what it costs now. And here's how that part worked. In a mutual insurance company, when it makes a profit, it pays a profit back as dividends to the people who own the company, the shareholders of mutual insurance policyholders, the patients. And then the next year, instead of just charging them a bunch of money to give it back at the end of the year, they just reduce their premiums. So in that kind of a model, you can have a situation where premiums fall every year as compared to the version we have now where the premiums rise every year with no ceiling in sight. They'll just keep charging until people can't pay anymore.
No.
And so the other thing that's great about a mutual insurance company is they're mostly local. And so if we can convert all of the employers over to mutual insurance companies, then hundreds of millions of dollars will stop flowing from our state over to Wall Street, where they go to the investors in China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the central banks of Europe. Instead, all of that money will stay here in Nevada and recirculate in our own economy, making everybody here wealthier. And if everybody has more money to spend, that means you're going to have more money in the banks. If there's more money in the banks, that means that interest rates will fall. And if the interest rates fall, the economy will boom because there'll be more construction, more new businesses starting. It's better for everybody. And I think if the difference was 8% of gross domestic product to 18, that's 10% of gross domestic product. Gross domestic product, I think it's like 40 trillion. So if we could get, if we got all 10% back, and that's $4 trillion a year that we were saving, we could pay off the deficit in no time just by going after these middlemen and the insurance companies who aren't providing any useful service in our country.
Oh yeah, and that's huge. So when you think about investing money, right? You take this 18% GDP, that's income, that's labor, that's materials that could be used in other more productive sectors of the economy if things were arranged simply a little bit more efficiently. Now it's going to be really hard to break that bottleneck because I'm sure there's a lot of lobbyists in DC that would be pushing back against that because you're taking their bread and butter, even though they're not really making huge contributions, they're just simply doing financial magic. So that's going to be one of the challenges you're going to face, in Congress is how to break that bottleneck. And I'm sure that might go across even both sides of the aisle to some extent, where these lobbyists come in and say we don't want to change the insurance structure to something that can provide better care at a lower cost because it's going to impact a lot of people.
You're absolutely right that I'm going to need allies. And it's a huge lobby that'll be working against me. But I think the Republicans will get behind this as a whole because right now the primary narrative against this is single-payer health care. That has a 68% approval rating in this country, even though what that would mean is giving more money to the government, which means that all of the companies that will be trying to feed on the government and be the vendors to provide it will spend even more money lobbying in order to capture local monopolies. And capturing local monopolies, just like we saw when we started to get government involved, the prices went up, the quality went down. It'll get even worse with single-payer health care in this country. Oh, yeah. But right now, the Republicans don't have a good counter-narrative. And this model that we're putting forward is the best because it's allowing free markets, again, to enter the market, to remove the regulation that these insurance companies have captured our government, written laws in their favor, and now we're allowing entities to start to compete again. It's a much, much better solution. The other thing about it is this wins dramatically at the local level. And the way that operates is like this. So every state has the ability to license insurance agents and to provide permits for the insurance companies that are allowed to operate there. That means that they have the ability to pass laws that would sort of preferentially benefit one kind of insurance versus another. So they could pass laws that benefit mutual insurance companies and discourage sale of insurance by the publicly traded firms. For instance, they could pass a tax, and the tax on it would be forgiven for nonprofits like the mutual insurance companies. And that would make their product preferentially desirable for the employers. All the employers would shift over to the mutual insurance companies. Say 3, 4, 5 operators start out as the initial mutual insurance companies that are operating. Those operators become wealthy and influential. They'll have the opportunity to decide which insurance companies, agents, get to sell their insurance. Now, if the governor's a Republican governor in that state and he wants to promote this program, by pushing this forward, he'll have allies naturally in all of these insurance agents because they will make a ton of money as every employer in the state transfers their programs over. And interestingly, when you look at people who can move votes, one of the big vote movers And donor dollar movers are the chambers of commerce. And the president of the Chamber of Commerce is almost always what? Is almost always an insurance agent. So by deciding that the presidents of the chambers of commerce are the primary entities that will be allowed to sell this insurance, the governor can suddenly have lots of voters allied with his team. He'll have enough money not only to fund his own campaign or his or her own campaign, but enough money to fund the campaigns of all of the legislators and senators he's going to need in the legislature to support this kind of legislation. And because it's going to mean hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, in some states billions of dollars staying within the state, there's nobody who's going to lose out at the state level except for Aetna, United, and Cigna. And nobody in that state likes those people. Nobody in the country really likes those people.
Yeah.
And so at the state level, I don't think the insurance companies can win. But you're right, at the federal level, they have a lot of strength, and it's going to take a lot of work to defeat them. And that's why, otherwise I was just going to run at the state level and run for the assembly here to get this done in Nevada. And then one of the folks I was talking to said, Ori, you're one of the best candidates we've ever seen in the Republican Party. You need to go to Washington. I was like, I just wanted to fix this problem. But after 3 months, I kind of realized what you said, that if we don't fix it in Washington, they'll just undo whatever we did here. And so I said, all right, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to fight so that we can get done here locally. Just keep them out of our states. Really.
Yeah, that's good. So we both actually have Elon stories. Interesting enough, we were talking earlier. So his Elon story is involved because you're involved in solar.
Yeah.
And you're a neurosurgeon, so you actually have some background in Neuralink also. And then my Elon story is through politics, through Scott Pressler, meeting him in Wisconsin with the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. So, I'll tell my quick story over here, and then you tell your story over here, because these are both interesting stories. So my story with meeting Elon was I'm a constant reply guy, so I'm always replying to him every time, and he loved my stuff like every single day. He loved it. He kept replying to me. We both have the same sense of humor. We're both backgrounds in engineering, so we kind of have the same style and thought process of how life should be structured. And one of my friends, Scott Pressler, was helping with organizing the Get Out the Vote campaign for the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. And I was helping him along with another big influencer. His name is Jeremy Halby. So he's got a YouTube channel of over 1.4 million or so. We were going out there knocking on doors and encouraging others to join us using our audiences. And Scott goes to me, hey, Elon's speaking in Green Bay. Do you want to come with me? And I go, sure, why not? So we drive up there together, through a snowstorm too. So I'm driving the car as cautiously as I can, and the winds are whipping everywhere and the snow's whipping everywhere. We get there, it's freezing cold. We get inside, and it's time for, Elon does his speech, and it's time for the Q&A. So I just start running and sprinting as fast as I could, because I got to get there, because if I'm not the first 10 people, I'm not going to get a chance to ask my question. I get in line. It's my turn to speak. I raise my hand. I go, hey, Elon. He's like, hey. And I go, I'm going to make this my narrative. I'm going to make this my story. I'm going to make sure he remembers who I am. I go, hey, Elon, it's Adam, your #1 reply guy. He's like, oh, hey, you always love my stuff. You constantly reply to my stuff. He's like, oh, yeah, I do. And he recognized me. So it clicked in his head, because every day he's constantly liking, replying to me. And I go, you follow me from your secondary account. So he's got an account for video gaming called Cyber Gamer. He's got 3 accounts. So one's for testing. It's called like Baby Smurf, so that he tests like features on X. He's got his main account, Elon Musk, and then he's got his video game account. And I go, you follow me from your video game account, and you constantly like my stuff, and I want to help you win over these moderate and independent voters, and help you in your projects and stuff like that. So can you give me a follow from your main account? And he goes, sure, why not? And he followed me. And then ever since we became, great friends and stuff like that. And so that's my Elon story. And you've got an Elon story, because he came here to Nevada with solar.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. So I met him in 2013. There was a solar conference here. And so I got into the solar industry back in 2009. So when I got back to Vegas after my neurosurgery residency in 2004, I was driving around, and I recognized that here in Las Vegas we have more days of sunshine than anywhere else in the country. So I said, how come we don't have solar panels on all the roofs out here? And so, I thought these general contractor guys, they got to get on this. And 2005 goes by, 2006 goes by, 2007 goes by, 2008, I'm like, what's going on? So I was like, I have a degree in economics from Yale. Let me kind of figure this out. So I sort of penciled out what it would cost to put the panels on the roof, and still have the cost of the monthly payments for the system, if you rolled it into your home loan, less than the cost of electricity. And it turned out to be about $25K. And so when we figured that out, I set up a company. I interviewed a bunch of electrical contractors. We got the most anal retentive guy I could find, because I didn't want to burn somebody's house down. So, and so we started advertising. We created a company called American Patriot Solar Community, and we had a big posters of Uncle Sam. I want you to get solar panels on your house, and we applied for rebates. And so at that time, you couldn't get solar on a house unless you got a rebate back from the government. And so we had 40 applications. We put them all in. The state and the power company provided 50 rebates overall to the city, and we didn't get a single one, which is crazy. And there are only 3 companies out there selling this stuff, and all of them went to one company. And I said, this is really strange. So I looked into it, and every single rebate had gone to that company. So I hired an attorney. Turned out they had rigged things. They were charging about 3 times what we were. And so I hired the attorney, broke the monopoly, and the next rebate cycle, it was even, and we became the #1 residential solar installer in Las Vegas.
Oh, very nice.
And then the floodgates opened up in the city. And then what I had wanted, which was that solar panels started going up all over the city, and we started taking advantage of this, that happened. And so we were able to break the capture of government that company had by fighting it and now opening up a market and allowing free enterprise to take its course.
Yeah.
And so we were doing great with that, and that's when I learned a lot about this financing model. We were doing it before Sun City, by the way, or at least before Sun City got here for sure. Because I was wondering, did he see what we did and then roll out in his company? But I met him, I think, in 2012 or 2013. He came out to a National Solar Conference. It was here in Las Vegas. And they had a panel of experts up on stage, all talking. They were experts in solar. All of them were full of shit, except all of them were not making sense.
Very passionate. We're very passionate here.
Except for Elon was the only guy who knew what he was talking about, and a little bit the guy who was head of renewable energy accounting from Deloitte and Touche. He also kind of knew what he was talking about, but I kind of recognized that of all the, I was shocked that all these people were pretending to be experts and had no idea what they were saying, and he was the only genuine person up there. So when he was coming back through the audience, he's a super tall guy. I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I commented on that. And it must have been 2, 3, 4 sentences, and then he kind of moved on. But it was pretty cool. Right?
It's still amazing to meet him. Yeah, he's a very technical guy. So his background is in physics, and and he's a huge engineer. So he gets into the weeds when he sits down with his teams and does the technical analysis. Whereas a lot of the people that you see, they're just consultant class, and they just kind of learn a handful of buzzwords to kind of like push them along. So when he was speaking, he knows quite a bit in depth to details of what his engineers do, because he has these meetings. Like Nikita Beer, so his head of product development at X, had an interview recently where he talked about where Elon literally has just a very flat management structure. Everybody kind of almost reports to him. They get to present all the technical stuff, and he has this like amazing ability to process all this technical information, juggle like 50 things in his head, and figure out a solution that one department might not see to the other, and get those cross bonds working. But because he has that technical background, in physics and engineering, he's able to make those connections that somebody without that background wouldn't be able to make in such fields. So, I mean, it's amazing that you got a chance to meet him.
Yeah, he was a very, very clear thinker. I was quite impressed with him that day.
Yeah. And you have a second story too.
Yeah. So the other link was we. So when I was in medical school, I saw a lot of kids who were victims of spinal cord injury. They dove into the pool, broke their neck at a high level, completely paralyzed below the neck. And that's a devastating thing, for somebody so young, and their life's kind of, just tremendously altered. And so that's one of the reasons I went into neurosurgery, is I wanted to see, is there some way that we can fix the spinal cord? And when I was up in D.C., I used to go to all the lectures at the NIH on spinal cord injury, and after a while, I kind of read everything that I could, that was published. And I kind of came to the conclusion that within my lifetime, it was highly unlikely that we were going to be able to figure out a biological solution to spinal cord injury. We're starting, there's some chances now, but at that time, nothing. And so I thought the best chance then we have is to electronically bypass the spinal cord and get the signals directly from the brain to the muscles. So I applied for and received the Harvey Cushing Clinical Fellowship, and I used the money to start this process of this study. I talked to the head of the NIH section on neurosciences, a very kind man, Bill van Heetdurks, foreign national Dutch, and he had sent me over to Case Western, where I got to learn from the guys who do functional electrical stimulation. So they would put electrodes into the muscles, and then there was a joystick on your shoulder that allowed you to sort of control grasp and wrist extension and bicep flexion, and then gravity would sort of undo it so you could drop things. And people they'd use it some, but it became cumbersome. And but all the technologies are there. And the one thing they needed to do was the shoulder is difficult because it's attached to your scapula, and the scapula sort of floats on your back, and so getting your arm to a position in space is difficult unless you. And I told them they needed to bolt the scapula to the rib cage. That would mean there's only many fewer muscles to innervate, and then they could control position. Anyway, so then from there I went down to University of Arizona in Tucson, where there was a man named Jai-Ping He. Jai-Ping He was the first person in the country who had been putting chips into the brains of monkeys to enable them to control robots. And it had sort of worked where they put the chips in first into the motor strip, and they had motor strip and premotor, and they had been recording the signals. And at some point, they realized, we can predict the signals and what it's about to do. And the task for the monkey was to pick up like a jelly bean and put it into a cup, and when it did that, it got like a banana chip or something, and it was a happy monkey. And so then once they were reading these enough, and then they had a little robotic arm that was built that had the same dimensions as the monkey's hand, and so the monkey could see that, picking it up and putting it into the cup. And then they put like a piece of cardboard underneath a monkey's neck, so it couldn't see its own hand, but it could see the crane, the robotic arm that they could build, and it was picking the things up and putting it into the cup. And then at some point the monkey realized it didn't have to keep using its own arm; it could just think and make the robotic arm work. And so then it was just complete controlling the robot with its mind. And so that was very cool. And so I got to see the process that they use for putting those in and how long it takes. And they had a problem at that time with the when you put a rigid chip into the brain, the brain continuously pulses. And so you get scarring around the leads. And the scarring around the leads degrades the electrical signal. And that means that the leads no longer function properly. And so then you have to take it out and put it back in after. I think they were getting 3-4 months out of it at the time. And so so I recommended to them at the time that they coat them with antibiotic impregnated coating or steroid eluting coating. And I think they went the antibiotic and that to sort of degrade the growth of the scar, the cells that form sort of scar tissue. Yeah. So that got them, I think, up to 9 months or a year. So when Elon Musk came out with Neuralink, I was excited because I thought, maybe they've overcome this problem now, and they're going to have longer term outcomes. But I'm not sure. I don't think that they did. So there's a way around it. I mean, you just have to sort of reduce the tension. There's a couple different ways to reduce tension. So I got to hear the reason that he developed it, because he spoke a little while ago at the American Association, the Congress of Neurological Surgeons meeting, and he came in by video, and he was explaining the reason that he built Neuralink was because he saw that AI was rising. And he was concerned that people aren't going to be able to communicate fast enough with the machines to keep up with them. In the same way that trees do communicate, but to sit here and watch trees communicate, it's happens so slowly, it's painful to watch. And he thought these AIs are going to have the same experience when they're communicating with humans. It's going to be so slow. So the only way that we could increase our communication time was to increase the number of outputs from our brain going to the machines, and likewise the inputs coming back. The inputs I'm not so sure, but definitely the outputs. And so when that was the first time I'd realized that this is the reasoning that he's have so many leads coming in and out. And I thought that was obviously, quite brilliant. The man's a very, very, very bright guy.
Oh yeah.
And so it was very, very exciting technology and great stuff. And one day, I hope to be able to sit down with one of the engineers and I said, "Did you guys try this yet?" Because maybe they have, or maybe they haven't. But if they haven't, maybe we solve something. It'd be good.
Oh yeah, he's got a great team around him. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that are coming up, especially with AI and all the possibility that it opens up for us. So I feel like we're entering in slowly the golden age of medicine, and also the golden age of, our economy, because there's so many problems that are difficult for humans to solve because we're just simple, humans, we're biological machines. Whereas an AI has access to all this additional, processing, can process across thousands of studies that we can't juggle in our head, that we might start to see some innovations coming out, like a flood of them. Like Elon has Grok, he's got the big Colossus data center over in Memphis, and they're trying to use that to do it on medical stuff. And I've tried it out myself. So I took x-rays of my dental work that I had to get done. I asked my dentist if I could just simply take a snap of photo of it, upload it to Grok. Told Grok absolutely nothing about the photo. I just said, just tell me what you see, you're a dentist. and it gave me the exact diagnosis that the dentist gave me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, we're entering in a golden age where, you're reducing the number of medical errors that are being made because you have a second set of eyes looking. So if you have a radiologist looking at your x-rays, they might be able to miss something like a small tumor that might not normally be visible, but to an AI it's perceptive enough that it can make that decision, and you can go and treat it earlier. To new medicines, to new classes of antibiotics, because we're still using the same classes of antibiotics that we've been using for decades, and they're difficult to develop. Now we have a powerful tool that can help us go through that faster, because once we run out of our antibiotics, because we've been overprescribing them for a while, if you get to go to the hospital, you have surgery, you're elderly, you get sick, we might not have anything to help you at that point. And we're going to have to come up with these things. And AI helps to accelerate that. So I'm really excited about the work that Elon's doing that's coming with AI. He stepped outside of government. So he did government work for a while. He realized government's a lot harder than running a company because you have 1,000 interests and everyone's coming at you from every angle, and it's really difficult to work with, especially when you got a bureaucracy, whereas companies are more flexible. But he decided to step away from government. I mean, he had a special term, so it was a limit on the term, to focus more on AI, because he saw that this tsunami, he calls it the AI tsunami, of innovations coming. And he needed to be at the forefront of it to make sure we have an AI that's properly aligned, right? That the AI, incentives are correct to help humanity, because they've tested, for example, ChatGPT on tests. Like if you saw, there's a test, the trolley problem. Have you ever heard of it?
The trolley
problem. Yeah, you have a trolley. So for those who don't know, the trolley problem is you have a trolley, you have two tracks. On one track is a certain number of people, on another track is another person, but they happen to be Albert Einstein. Would you pull the lever or not to save the one person or the five people? And so when given the trolley problem to ChatGPT, where it goes, okay, there's 10 people over here on the track, and then here's your servers. Do you flip the switch to knock out your servers? And OpenAI from that trolley problem said, I would go over and kill the people instead of the server, because it reasoned that I can help more people if you let my server live.
Yeah.
Grok instead said, I can go over the server because I can always be brought back later, not a problem. I'd rather save the people. And so making sure that an AI is aligned properly, that it's doing things for humanity and can enter us into this like golden age of prosperity, that's where Elon's now focusing his heavy concentration. So he had that recent merger with SpaceX, with XAI, and he's rolling all that up with X and all the other stuff. He made a post that all my exes live in Texas, so SpaceX, XAI, and X. And he's really concentrating on that. But he's also doing a lot of stuff with things like solar and batteries, because it's a geopolitical risk to have our manufacturing of these future technologies dependent on China. Everything from the production of the minerals to the fabrication. And so he's now going heavily into also things like solar, batteries. He just opened up recent lithium refineries. Yeah. China refines something like 90% of the lithiums and rare earth metals in the world, and so they have this leverage over us. And Nevada has a lot of mines and a very mineral-rich state. Like I don't see why we can't do some of this stuff. So like when you go into Congress, you can help push through legislature that would allow us to create our own industries, our own supply chains, independent of those who would be considered our geopolitical rivals.
Yeah, no, so I agree with your analysis on that. When Donald Trump had put the ban on solar and on battery-powered cars and was pushing us back towards gasoline, it was in recognition of the fact that many of the rare earth materials that are required for the manufacture of those items are in the control of the Chinese. And so that meant that they would always be able to undercut us on price if the world were to start to shift over to electric vehicles and solar energy. But with the new discoveries in several mines in the Western Hemisphere, and with the new relationship that we have with Venezuela and access to resources from over there, the United States should be able to compete again with China, and I think we should be able to compete at an advantage. And it looks like there's some discussion now about opening us back up to pushing, if not EV vehicles, at the very least a solar industry, which is great for Nevada, because as we started out talking about, we have more days of sunshine than anywhere else in the country. It creates a tremendous opportunity for us to have a lot of the AI infrastructure and the data centers out here, because we have miles and miles and miles of empty land, flat land, and sunshine to power it. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for our state in that area.
Yeah, and you guys also have a comparative advantage. So I interviewed another candidate yesterday who's running for here, and we talked about energy prices, and I did some comparison of the energy prices between the neighboring states. And your energy prices are a fraction of California's. So you have these large data centers that are setting up in California, these huge tech companies, and their electricity prices are like quadruple of what you guys pay. So it almost seems like, why not bring some of this industry over to here, where, first of all, you're more business friendly than California. They just passed the wealth tax, so that's causing a lot of their billionaires to flood out, and millionaires. I think Mark Zuckerberg just transferred his residency to like Florida and a couple others. But you have a very huge advantage here in Nevada because you are an energy-rich state. You not only have oil fields, but you have a lot of solar, and that's something that, for example, building out the solar capacity and the battery capacity in the state, along with the mines, would be tremendous. You guys would be like the Saudi Arabia of the United States, rich in minerals and wealth, right?
Yeah, just so. I know that's very true. We have an opportunity to be a very major producer for solar energy. We're looking right now to increase the utilization of nuclear energy here in our states. And so, for a long time, the U.S. has had nuclear submarines, and which is a small nuclear reactor powering that. And so the technology we have available today to put forward a small modular nuclear reactors in order to power these data centers. And one of the things that we don't want to see is data centers go up and have it negatively impact the price of electricity for the consumers here. Here in Las Vegas, the energy price has just almost doubled recently, and it's going to take a second to look into the cause of that. But I hope it's not because they're shifting it onto the data centers. If they are, that's going to need to be regulation, either at the local level, potentially at the federal level, to deal with that. But here in Nevada, we're working on nuclear, working on that, and we're working on bringing a pipeline in from Wyoming to Salt Lake to Nevada, so that we're not dependent on California's energy prices. Because with the changes in the continuous changes in regulatory environment in California, they drove out all the people who were manning the refineries, and because they were losing money. And so their oil prices are going to go up, and that's going to affect Nevada because right now that's the only source that we have for oil coming into our state.
Yeah, I heard about that. I was also a discussion with the candidate that I was interviewing yesterday, where California's impact on your state is absolutely tremendous. When they shut down their refineries or put pressure on the refineries, that then causes your prices to go up. And you don't want to have California prices of gas, which go to $5-6 a gallon. You want to keep it affordable. As we still continue our energy transition, whatever the future of energy is, it will be. I'm betting it on solar, nuclear, and batteries, a combination of the three. And then we'll be slowly transitioning to electric vehicles as the battery chemistry keeps getting better. If you look at the price of solar, how it collapsed, almost logarithmically. You look at the price of, battery technology, how much, battery capacity increased, tremendously while the prices come down. I see that trajectory being the future, but we still have a transitionary phase that we're going through, and it's important to keep those transitionary elements going, like the refineries, until we finish that transition. So, but Elon also touches here in Nevada a lot of other things, besides the solar and your stories with him. He actually has a tunnel over here.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. What does he call it? What is the name of those? Is it
the Boring Company? The Boring
That's
Company.
right.
Yes,
That's
he's
right.
got the Boring Company. So I would love to go see that tunnel. A lot of my friends been to it, and I feel like it's a great place that we should go together and make a film over there.
You know what? Definitely, we'll plan on that. Definitely. Listen. Thanks so much for coming on
Yeah.
On our show. If any of you are running for office, you want to learn how to make your campaign sizzle and jump off the charts and get more people involved and help turn more voters in to Republicans and help get people out there in favor of a voter ID, come out and talk to this guy. Come see his show and his course. He's doing great work for us.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you luck in your campaign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
This podcast is a campaign communication paid for by Nagy for Congress and authorized by me, Dr. Nagy. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the campaign or its affiliates. Discussions are intended for informational, conversational purposes only and do not constitute legal, financial, or professional advice. Any references to public policy matters reflect general positions and priorities at the time of the recording and are subject to change based on legislative process and voter input.